Welcome to Fairy Tale Access, where the head fairy's quest is to prove that fairy tales do exist in actual time rather than once upon a time. Together, we will unravel the heroes, young and old, who turn dreams into reality. These are the people who still believe in happily ever after. The discoveries will bend even our most cynical non-believers into believing in fairy tales. Hi, welcome to Fairy Tale Access. Today I'm really excited to introduce you to Ken Boyter, actor, author, medium, and his exciting Legends of Grimous Ironblood. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Very excited.
From England by Skype, correct?
That is correct, yes, England. In the Shire, Hertfordshire.
Oh, wow. Okay, so tell me how you came up with this tale.
Well, the Legends of Grimous Ironblood. Yeah, I was influenced. I really love folk stories. So I used to, I devour those. I really like Jim Henson's The Storyteller. I don't know if you remember that television show that was years ago. So when I was a kid, I loved anything fantasy. I used to read the Fighting Fantasy game books. And there was a fantastic book that I found in a second-hand shop. And it was called The Encyclopedia of Things That Never Were. And it just covered all this sort of folklore and mythology and magic. And I just started reading it. And in there was a little story called The Bottle Imp. And it was all about this bottle, this magic bottle, where you could get your heart's desire. If you owned it, you could wish for anything and you would get it granted. But the catch is always a catch, isn't there? If you died and you owned the bottle, you'd go straight to hell and you would be tortured forever. So you had to work out when you got rid of the bottle. The other catch was you couldn't just give it away. It was magic. You couldn't destroy it, but you could sell it for less than you bought it for. So obviously, as the money goes down, the last couple of people that sort of thinking of buying it, you're going to get stuck with it. And I really love that concept of, there's always a catch to magic. You can get what you want, but you have to, there's a price to pay. And I took that idea with the bottle, and I like the bottle that went from person to person, from character to character. And that was the starting point. And then I liked the healers. I remember watching Western films, and there was always a character that would come in and he was snake oil. He would sell snake oil and it would cure anything. It would cure your bad back. It would cure your earache, anything you like, all just through one potion. And of course, it was rubbish. It wasn't. By the time that people realized they'd been conned, he was off and out of the town. So I thought I'd combine those two concepts. I thought, what if that snake oil actually was genuine? What if it really could heal? And then I thought, but what was in the potion and why would that healer have it? How did he get hold of it? And then I thought, the bottle, I'll use the bottle imp. So I didn't really have a little imp in the bottle, but it was magical potion that grants your heart's desire. So really, whoever owns it and whoever drinks the liquid, they get their heart's desire. But the catch is, you might think your heart's desire is to be rich beyond your wildest dreams or to fall in love, with a princess. But what your heart's desire might be different from what you think it is. So you might end up with something that you weren't expecting. And that was the basis of the story.
It was a wicked good story. I enjoyed the mythical. I enjoyed the way it rhymed.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
It was really well done. And can you tell me about the True Love Rose?
Yeah, so in the story, as you probably realise, I do like to ramble on. I do like to chat. And when I did plan out the book, I'm a bit of a planner, but I do like to have spaces, I think, in the creative process. So when I was writing it, I just realised there were stories within stories within stories. So one of the stories within stories was the True Love Rose. And that is a little sort of mini story because there's two brothers are fighting for the love of one of the characters. And they're trying to outdo each other with daring deeds. And one of them is a warrior, and his warriors guild, one of the characters tells them about this true love treasure that's a myth. Nobody could ever find it, and it's beautiful beyond anybody's wildest dreams. And so one of the brothers thinks, aha, if I go and get that, then obviously I can win over the girl. Obviously he's completely wrong, that the girl doesn't even like him, so why would just getting her treasure and a rose, why would that change anything? Anyway, he's a bit pig-headed, so off he goes. And I decided, well, actually, my brain just started thinking about the backstory of, well, how did this treasure get in this cave? Why would somebody hoard all this treasure or even make the treasure? And I decided, okay, it was a king, and he wanted to woo a lover. He wanted to woo a princess. And unfortunately, though, the princess didn't really love him, but actually loved gold and loved money. So it was a cautionary tale about marrying for wealth and not for love. I don't want to spoil it, obviously, if anybody wants to read it. But yeah, so that's the concept there. Just be careful, why you're marrying somebody. That was the tale there.
That was really well planned out and enjoyable to follow. What about the pictures, though? That really made the story come alive. Yeah,
I really love fantasy imagery. I love all of that. And I was massively influenced, as I mentioned before, the fighting fantasy books by Ian Livingstone and Steve Jackson. And they were game books. And they had beautiful lined illustrations. And so I used to draw like that. And I still do. And then, but my thing with drawing is I have to kind of see what's in front of me. And so I hadn't really developed the language of drawing fantasy because obviously, I hate to break to people, but dragons aren't real, or are they? Maybe they are. But I haven't seen any to be able to, or they don't sit still enough for you to draw. Whereas my friend, Rich Nairn, who's a fantastic illustrator and caricaturist, he could just sort of go, right, yeah, I can draw that. And he literally just sits down and you watch him just draw. And it was really amazing, the process. And I met him actually on the set of, I did some supporting artist work. I did some extra work on the film Hugo, on the feature film Hugo. And that's where we met. And he used to just sit and draw people. And I really loved his style. So I said to him, right, I'm writing this book. Would you like to help me? And we can put the illustrations in. So there's over 50 illustrations in there. And that was a really creative process because I had an idea of what each character would look like. And then I realized, well, if I'm going to have illustrations, when I write the story, I don't have to give, as much detail as if the illustrations weren't there, because obviously you want the illustrations to speak for themselves. So that's how that came about. And so I just briefed him and we worked to and fro and changed bits. And
yeah, he's amazing.
And I sort of said to him, right, have some free reign as well, because I wanted him to put his personality into it as well. So yeah, so that's how that came about. Yeah.
Wow. And your fans can follow you on YouTube with The Bottled Imp, exploring the realms of fantasy.
That's right. Yeah. Well, as I say, it was when my friend Julian Newman Turner, he's a professional photographer and filmmaker, and he always wanted to do a YouTube channel. I wanted to sort of do a YouTube channel. I'm an actor as well. I'd always sort of wanted to maybe get into presenting, and we just thought, well, let's just do it. And we couldn't agree on a subject because he's also an actor as well. And we couldn't really agree on a subject that we both really felt passionate about to co-present. So in the end, we just said, well, look, why don't we choose fantasy? Because I'm into that. I can do book reviews, film reviews, board game reviews, and then do anything, just explore. And because, and I know I've taken for granted over the years, places in England and Scotland and, in the UK, we're so blessed with the history. We've got beautiful castles, very, medieval buildings. And we thought, well, maybe we could go and investigate those. And do little mini reports. We have, Renaissance fairs over here. We have, jousting. We've got loads of sort of fantasy medieval stuff going on. So we thought, yeah, we won't run out of content. That was that was the thing. So yeah, so that's been going for about 4 years now.
Wow. So how does your mediumship fit into the scheme of all of the things you do? I mean,
I know, it's crazy. So with the mediumship, I've always had that, and it's something that I've always just been aware of the spirit world, and I've had information given to me and I've passed it on to people, and I don't know how I did it. I don't know how I know that about people. And obviously as a kid, you know, you have to learn that not everybody thinks it's sort of normal. You know, I just thought it was normal. I thought everybody could do it, you know, and that was just a thing.
Right.
So then you sort of go, oh, okay, maybe it isn't. My mum also had the gift, so luckily we could talk it through as I was growing up, and it was one of those things that I just thought it would be nice to pursue, but I'm quite a creative person, so I kind of went down the creative route and sort of put it to one side. But the spirits, being the spirits, they wouldn't let it lie. So every time I went to see a tarot reader or a medium, they would always say, you should be doing this, you should be doing this. So in the end, I thought, okay, see if I can, you know, get some training. How do you get training on it? How do you become a medium? How does this work? And I was very fortunate. I found somebody that was local to me, and she sat circles. She ran groups where you learn. And it's more, I guess, if you've got it initially, it's more about developing it, because half the problem when you first start is that my own thought, or is that the spirits? You know, you have to kind of learn, well, what is them and what is you? Mm-hmm. And also, I really wanted it to be true. I sat circle and I didn't want it to be a con. I didn't want to be part of that. I didn't want to say, right, you just check to see whether they take their ring off, whether, you know, I just thought, no, if it's genuine, if this is genuine, I will stick with the training. And it was. And so over the years, I've become more confident, and the links between the spirits has become stronger. And I sort of am in no doubt now, because I think initially I was a little bit like, you know, am I going mad? Is this crazy? But because I'm getting so many positive and accurate, you know, messages that I couldn't possibly know about these people, you just think, well, there's got to be something in it. And I'm one of these people, I'm not trying to convince anybody. It is all about your own personal experience, whether you believe or not. I firmly believe that. But the nice thing about it is that you can help people, and that's really why I do it. Yeah, but yeah, where it fits in, I don't know. It's just I think that's more of a life's calling as opposed to sort of work, if you see what I mean. It's just one of those things.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, I think with your acting, your YouTube channel, and the storytelling that you do, you can really see that you have a great connection with people, and the way that you develop the characters and the way they play out, it's fun. It's like a little magical, and it's just so much fun to follow.
Right. Yeah.
You know, it kind of whisks you away.
Yeah, well, that's what I hoped for. Whenever I write, you know, and I do a project now called the Tales from Edra, and that again was because I do have lots of things on the go. I was thinking, actually, now hang on, focus back on my writing. Let's not lose track of that. So Tales from Edra is all about my writing, and so I've been writing a short story a month. I am a big one that needs deadlines, so that's been really good. And every single time I sit down to write, it's always about the character, because why would you, if you don't care about the character, why would you then want to read, you know, certainly if it's a novel, why do you want to read 300 pages on characters you don't care about? So for me, yeah, just human interactions, and I do like to sort of put a slightly moralistic thing on it, because I really love that you can learn from stories as well. I try not to be too obvious with it.
No, but so the whole story has this kind of lineup, which is deceiving.
Yes.
Because I thought, okay, so it won't be that bad to read. You know, it'll take maybe a couple of hours. But it actually took longer, because you get engaged with the pictures and you keep moving along. Yeah. It was really a well-packed, fully developed story. Like, I thought it was going to be more like a storybook, like short, quick.
Right, yeah. Well, because it's written in poetry, it's written in verse. I mean, I hadn't really planned on doing that, but I was commissioned by somebody who wanted a Polish story translated And it was a relatively short story that they wanted translated, but they wanted it in verse. So she wrote her English wasn't brilliant, so she wrote a real pidgin English outline of the story. And it wasn't fantasy, it was a more realistic. But I really enjoyed writing the verse. I just liked the fun of it and the adventure of it. And as I was writing, I was thinking, hang on, I need to do a fantasy version because I want it to be slightly darker and, you know, and have magic in it and different races. And that's when I decided, right, I'll sit down and I will write this in poetry. And I'm not really, I've never really read a lot of poetry. I mean, I've got an English literature degree, but we didn't really go down too much of the poetry side of things. And I was, say, a chapter in, and my friend said to me, "Oh, they're great, aren't they, those rhyming dictionaries?" And I was thinking, rhyming dictionaries? What are you talking about? And he goes, yeah, you know, like rhyming dictionaries you can get. And I was like, I haven't got one of those. So I quickly bought myself one. So my advice, if you are writing poetry, get a rhyming dictionary. It helps. And then from there, I still wanted it, like you say, to be a cohesive, like a novel. I wanted it to be a saga. So like Beowulf, where it's a big, long story that has sort of episodes in it. And as you can tell, like I say, I like to sort of start a story, then you ramble off because I get another idea. Then I tell another little story. Then it hopefully comes back and it rambles off and it goes up. And so hopefully, though, it still works. And from what you're saying, it sounds like it does.
No, it worked exceptionally well.
Good.
So tell us about the next book. Is there more to this series?
Yes, I was rather ambitious, like all authors, I think. And that's a good thing, I think, because I thought, yes, I know, it'll be a 10-book series or a 20-book series. But then when you actually think about that, and the realities of that is that when I then started to sell the book at book fairs, I just suddenly thought, well, if I've got book 2 and if I've got book 3, so I had book 10 and somebody new comes to me, it's like, well, you have to read all, you know, the first 9 books in order to buy this. And I thought, yeah, that's not going to work, is it? So what I took a leaf out of Terry Pratchett's Discworld series, where, again, book 1 and 2 were linked. The book 2 was a sequel. But then all the others are a standalone novel set in his Discworld. So I thought, well, if I do that, so if I write a trilogy, so this book 1, and then I'll write 2 more in the verse style, then from then on, all the other books will be standalone, but they will be set in the world of Edra. But what I really love, and I've found doing this with the short stories, is say you mention a character in the book, say in Legends of Grimous Ironblood, I might then go, I really like that character. I'll bring that character back and maybe give them a bigger role, or even or a smaller role. So if they were the main character in that book, they might be just a little character in this book. I really like that concept because then you really do. So if you then start reading all of the material, you then go, oh, okay, that connects with that, and and hopefully it all works. But what I realize is the more you do that, the more you have to keep track of where your characters are and all the place names.
I know. How do you keep track?
Yeah.
Do you have like a sticky board?
No. Well, initially I do plan stuff out, but there comes a point where a friend of mine said, you've been working on this, like planning for about a year, you've world built. And she just said, well, why don't you just start writing it? Surely you could. And I went, actually, that's a really good point. I can just start writing it. So I did that. And I've discovered, I haven't started writing it, like keeping a written record. It's all up here. But I think I'm getting to the point now where I'm thinking, right, where was that character last? What's that village called? Because I drew the map at the front of the book, and I put the key things that I knew were in the book. So after I'd written the book, I think, right, any mention of a place name, I'm going to have to go through the book, even if it was just a throwaway line. And then I want to put it on the book, because I really love it when you see a map and then you've read about that place and then you see it on a map. It just becomes, more real, doesn't it?
I like that too.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's good.
So tell me about your acting. How do you fit everything in?
Yeah, that's it's been a challenge, but I think the thing is that if you enjoy what you do, you don't kind of mind doing a lot of it. And also if you're self-employed, you really don't say no too much. So you just kind of say yes a lot. So it ebbs and flows. I've not been auditioning a lot recently in the last year because I did want to concentrate on the writing and also on my mediumship. But I still do murder mysteries regularly at the weekends. So they're a lot of fun, where we go to hotels and there's 4 or 5 actors and it's all fully scripted. And and then sometimes it takes place over 2 days, sometimes it's just an evening, but the stories are really involved. And the writers, Nick Cross and Rob Turner, they've been doing it for like 15 years. I've been doing them for the past 10 years. And what I like about them, again, is they develop the characters. So when you're, a guest, when you're an audience member, and we interact, so we do a scene and then we'll interact, and so you just feel like you're part of the guests. They really invest in you because they can chat to you about anything and they get to know you and you have a laugh with them. So then obviously when one of you dies, you hear them say, oh no, not Graham or not Sally or not, because they've spent time with you. And then they, think, oh no, right, so who would do this? And so again, I'm a firm believer in characters and then obviously the storylines as well. I don't know what the question was there. You see, that's me rambling.
No, it's great that, as an actor, you're able to write as well and give such a great story. And I like the folksy, like folklore. That's why I kept looking for it. Like, did he develop it from some old folklore in England, or where did this come from?
Well, it is a mixture. It's totally a mixture. So it is reading lots of folklore myself. And then I guess there is, what they might call canon folklore. So, fairies, if you were to look on Wikipedia or look in a book about what fairies are, there's kind of rules about what fairies are. Again, trolls, you would look that up and you see what it is. Magic, you'd look that up and see what it is. So there's kind of rules of what the traditional meaning of all of this is. And then obviously as an author, you kind of then want to use it for your kind of benefit, and you would hopefully kind of tweak it a little bit. For example, my latest short story for the Tales from Edra, it's about a changeling baby. And so a changeling baby is fairy based. So fairies aren't traditionally, in this country anyway, the Tinkerbell sort of, cutesy with wings. It's not really the Disney fairy. They can be quite ugly. They can be, a bit deformed. They can be, they levitate rather than fly. So there's different sort of concept of what a fairy is. And they play tricks on humans. And some of them are a little bit dark, of which is swapping babies. So, yeah, I know it gets a bit dark. And they're called changeling babies. So a couple might find, oh, where's my baby gone? It's been swapped for either for a grown-up fairy that's all old and wise, and wizened and ugly and, just old and wrinkled, but sort of looks like a baby. Mm-hmm. And obviously it's not. It's 200 years old or whatever. Or it's swapped for a deformed baby. And so it's quite a serious subject matter. And I thought, well, I like that idea because I want to explore the feeling of loss. What would you do in that situation? That's a serious situation. That's, that. So I wanted to explore that. But magic, in fairy terms, there's the word glamour. So it's not called magic, it's called glamour. And I thought, and it's more to do with the power of thought is really how the fairies have their magic. But the word, I think it's an Irish word called glamourai. I think that's how you pronounce it. And it's spelt differently for glamour, but it just means... Yeah, that was a fantastic experience. So I'd gone up to Fringe as a kid. I loved it. It's a big festival in Edinburgh. And one day I thought, I'd love to act there. It would be fantastic. And the opportunity never really came around. And I thought, and my friend Vicky Holden Swindon, she's a fantastic actress and storyteller. And she read my book and she said, oh, Mike, why don't we do this? Why don't we adapt this and we'll take it up to the Fringe? And I went, are you crazy? And she went, yes. And I went, okay, that's good enough for me. So I adapted the book, and I did do extensive rewrites for the play. And so basically it focuses on Loquacious Macabre, who is a storyteller. And he's featured in the book, but only briefly, because I thought, well, who's telling these stories? And he has an apprentice called Stumps, who he treats very badly. He basically uses her as a slave. And so the play is based on, she wants to be a storyteller. Will she ever get to tell a story? Because he sort of keeps denying her. Fortunately, throughout the play, things happen. But we had a fantastic time, yeah. And I'd never performed in the Edinburgh Fringe, and it was such a good experience. And just the fact that, again, so we had 3 stories in verse within the play. So it was us kind of, the characters of the 2 leads. But then we would have proper storytelling. So it's a mixture of a play and storytelling. And the first night we had about 50 people in, which was we had a 60-seater, so it's pretty much full. The atmosphere was brilliant. And right at the end, as we took the bow, there's that normal sort of slight silence, and then hopefully people clap. And in that slight silence, one girl, she must have been about 12, just called out, "That was amazing." And I thought, you can't ask for better than that. That's what it's all about.
No, that's fantastic. I can't wait to see more from you. And thank you so much for sharing so much about how you got to craft this amazing tale.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. Until next time, keep asking questions. And if you want to get lost in a really good folklore fantasy, The Legends of Grimous Ironblood is definitely it. We'll see you soon.